Recently, I was critical on social about the way that camera marketing is being handled on YouTube right now. And I read a lot of your comments about it, and I have a few responses to those comments before we jump right into it. First, to the creators who shared my sentiments and actually offered to participate in this video or whatever I was going to make, I want to say thanks a lot. And I actually considered including you in this video, but then I thought it might actually be a lot better if you make your own videos. More videos equals more awareness. And honestly, I'd rather hear what you have to say in your own format without me interjecting in some kind of conversation. I also read a lot of comments from YouTubers saying that they would find this, new YouTubers who said that they would find this useful to help them navigate these potential, issues that they might find in the future. And I think that might actually be what urged me to make this video more than anything. And then lastly, there was a lot of comments from people in other sectors that wanted me to make it clear that this isn't just a camera YouTube review issue, that other categories, basically anything that gets reviewed on YouTube, probably has these same struggles. What did I actually write when I wrote that blurb on social? Let's talk about press events for a minute. They're weird. In the photo video space, many of us camera reviewers are friends, so when you invite a bunch of us to an interesting location, and we're hanging out, eating good food, and sharing stories, the positivity in the air naturally rises. Then they shuffle us all in an auditorium where an enthusiastic speaker from the brand comes out to tell us about this new product that they're very excited to share with us. By this point, the room is already so excited just to be there in that moment that we clap and cheer just because some dude from the camera brand merely walked on stage. So then when they start showing us slides on a massive screen about their latest, likely only infinitesimally better gadget, we collectively start building a video in our minds of how to best regurgitate this to you, the consumer and YouTube viewer, and likely how to shoehorn a sponsor in there so we can actually get paid, because these press events actually cost us money, not make it. They don't give a presentation about the camera's cons, so it's up to us to find them. But imagine trying to find all those cons while walking around an exotic location with a group of friends, all giggling about a bunch of esoteric memes, and with limited time before we have to travel back home and rush to edit the video to hit embargo. It's a flawed system designed to generate hype and sell products. It's also extremely effective. We should actually be impressed that many creators are able to put any kind of reasonably balanced review at all, considering these conditions. I don't generally fault anyone for the type of content that comes out around embargoes or after press events, aside from generally lackluster or completely absent disclosures, but I think what we're actually doing wrong is playing the game in the first place. Why am I talking about this now? Why now, and why with Lumix? Why after a Lumix launch? And the answer to that is simple. This is the first launch in a while where I've been in the position that I've been in, and I'm not participating in the launch at all. I'm not reviewing the camera at home while people are at a press event. I'm not at the press event. I'm just a viewer on YouTube that was watching these videos to see what is everybody saying about the Lumix S9. And I'm reading your comments and I'm watching the videos, and I thought, wow, there's a serious disconnect here between me knowing what these people are up to in a positive way and reading what the comments are saying and thinking. And so I got to experience that, maybe more as a viewer than as anybody else. In my opinion, there's 3 stages to the camera reviewer life cycle, if you will. You start out, nobody knows who you are. You got to do everything yourself. If you're trying to review cameras, you're either reviewing the cameras you own, maybe some old stuff. Maybe what I did is I made a connection with a local store and started trying to borrow cameras for them for favors and then making videos on that stuff. I wasn't getting sent anything. I wasn't going on press trips. That's step 1. That's the hustling life cycle. And then when you do that, if you build a bit of an audience, then the brands are going to see you. And then the invitations will come. Invitations to borrow gear, invitations to maybe get in a little earlier, invitations to go to a press event. And this is the one where the traps appear. And then I feel there's a third stage, which is kind of where I'm at now, and I know some other creators that are as well, which is you're kind of over it, and you see the lack of value in that middle section that a lot of the audience doesn't see. They think, oh, they got to say things positively, because if not, they're not going to get sent gear anymore. They're not going to go on the trips. What do you mean the video's not sponsored? It's clearly sponsored because you're getting all this stuff. That value is overstated, because when you're first entering into that second phase of the life cycle, it is extremely exciting. But not all creators are in the same stage of that life cycle. So it's not fair to paint all creators with the same brush of how important it is to them. But again, I'm only going to share my perspective, which is that I don't care about your trips. In fact, I don't really care that much about embargoes or getting early access to cameras. And I'm going to provide a little bit of evidence to back this up. But the trips thing has always been sort of a joke to me. One, as I said, these trips cost money. They don't make money. So for me, it's always just been about hanging out with other creators. That's the sole value to me. If I want to go on a trip, I'll pay to go on my own trip. I don't need the brand to send me there. And often, I just don't go. And if I do go, and then they announce something, I say, just so you know, I'm not making a video while I'm here. I don't make videos about press events. I'm not going to rush to get anything out. You can send me the camera, and I'll review it at home in my time. That's the only way I like to do it. I don't make videos on press events. And I don't think anybody else should either. Not trying to throw shade, but it comes back to what I was saying, which is you get this sort of rushed video where everybody kind of makes the same video and everybody's only discovered 3 or 4 of the exact same cons. And kudos to all those creators for actually being able to put together these videos in a quick time with, you know, a balanced perspective on as much information as we have. But these creators haven't had a chance to really live with the camera. So they're going to find things out later on, and then they're going to give you their full reviews later on. So the preview that they give you at the press events is just because they have to. And it's not fair that we're in a situation where they have to. Everybody feels like they're racing. Everybody feels like they got to be first. You all got to get your video out. And also, when we talk about brands, we're going to talk about consequences. But let's just move past that. Trips are not as valuable as they appear. The audience shouldn't overstate their value. And if you're a new YouTuber, don't get sucked into like, oh my God, trips. I know they're going to be exciting, you know, but have sort of like a code of ethics and stick to it. Make your money on YouTube and then pay for your own trips. That's my advice on that. I do go on trips though. I'm not trying to be a hypocrite. It's just that, you know, I don't overstate their value. And I think that if you don't make videos while you're on the trips and you tell the brands, you can send me if you want, but you know, I'll just go hang out with YouTubers. I'm not gonna make anything. And you can ask any of the YouTubers at like the Sony events that I go to. Gerald just sits around in a chair and talks shop and doesn't do anything for the brand. And sometimes they invite me back, sometimes they don't. I think a criticism that I've seen in the comments that is fair is that when audiences have a hard time believing that you're getting flown to a place that you care enough about to go on that trip to actually go on it, that you're being given the camera as a long-term loaner, that you have somewhat of an established relationship with the brand, that you're also somehow going to be completely able to just, if you hated the camera, to make a video, I hate this camera and here's why. Now, some creators do, and I've seen those videos and kudos. And the other creators I know personally, I know that they are trying to find a balanced, objective video in there. All I'm saying is that the skepticism from the audience, I think, is warranted because me as a viewer who's in this space, when I watched your videos, I was skeptical. So what does that mean? And I already know how I know the honesty that you're providing, and I was still skeptical watching it. Now, I know these creators well enough to defend them and say, guys, trust me, the trip isn't that important to them. They're going there and they're trying their best to make a balanced video so they can stick probably their own sponsor in there and actually get paid because, like I said, the trip isn't worth any money. I think there's a misconception with a lot of people, because of the comments that I've read, that suggest that when they see, 30 people, whatever, all posting a video at the same time, what's Lumix up to, what's Sony up to, etc. That's just an embargo. And in case you don't know what an embargo is, the brand, they make you sign an NDA, then they give you all the information about the camera, and they say, nobody's allowed to talk about this until this date and time. Now, there's no other collusion going on there other than every creator has to respect that embargo, and many of them have their videos ready to go, and then when the embargo is lifted, they just hit publish. And so that's why you get flooded with them. It's nothing coordinated other than you're not allowed to post before that time. So there is a question of like, well, just having that early access, is that so beneficial that you're now warped your perspective? That's a good question. And then the second one is, what's the value in being first? As somebody who's been doing this for a while, I can tell you the value in being first is also severely overstated. I've had some videos where I launched them at embargo and they've done incredibly well. I've also had some that were but then I've had some videos I did after the fact where I thought, nobody's gonna watch this because I wasn't first, I missed it, I'm 6 months late, or Canon didn't send me the camera until after everybody's already covered it, nobody's gonna listen to me. And they did either just as well or surprisingly better. I think that being first is way overrated, and that is one of the major traps of that second stage of the life cycle. So again, to new YouTubers, you only got to the recognition you got to by making videos on old stuff, by making better videos or more interesting videos or providing a unique angle on old stuff. You now don't need to have the new stuff in order to keep making interesting videos with interesting angles and so on. I do embargoes more than anything now to give me a schedule to stick to so that I can give sponsors dates. I can say to the sponsor, look, on April 10th, there's a lens coming out and I'm gonna make a video on that one. I'll put your sponsor spot in that video. Does that sound good? And it's gonna be on this product and whatever. It lets me stay organized. If it wasn't for that, if there was no embargoes, I'd have to find another way to do it, but I don't really think that it would affect views that much. And again, it makes sense because you built your channel on not being first. And that's another reason why I hate press events, because when you go to them, and everybody is pretty collaborative in the camera space, which is a great thing, but you're sitting in a room with 100 other people and you're almost thinking, everybody in here is gonna be posting on the date they just put on the big PowerPoint presentation. I guess I better post on that date too, or I'm gonna get buried. Yeah, you know what? If your video is uninteresting and you have nothing unique to say, yeah, it's probably going to get buried and lost. So don't do that. Find something interesting to say. And if you don't have anything interesting to say, don't review the product. Don't. And I've gotten some criticism from people because like, you don't review this brand anymore. You don't talk about that anymore. How come you didn't compare it to this? How come you didn't? Because I'm not interested. And if I'm not interested in it, then I'm just going to make some vanilla video that is going to get buried by all the other videos, especially if somebody else is making one that is interesting and they do care about the product and they're going to put the passion into it. So being first is way, way, way overrated. We should all stop it. We should all stop trying to be first and only make videos on things that you find interesting. But again, I don't want to tell you how to run your business. You know, maybe you need it. Sometimes you're in a spot where you got a sponsor and you need a video and there is a thing, so you make a video on anyway so you can get money. Because as much as some audiences don't want YouTubers to make any money, when you've shifted to making this your full-time gig, you got to get paid. You got to keep the lights on, right? Maybe you got employees. Maybe your studio is in your house and you got to pay your mortgage. These are all things you need money for. So I'm not going to tell somebody, oh, don't do that. Don't get paid. Get paid. I never throwing any shade at somebody for making their money. I'm just saying we don't need to be first. If you've got an interesting voice, you can get your money and you can get paid and you can make an interesting video that you actually care about. You don't have to be on a press event and you don't have to be first. How brands react to positive versus negative coverage and how that affects future trips, gears, and loans. It depends. It depends on the brand. Now, I'll give you a little bit of context here. I am in Canada. Some brands have a Canadian sub-detachment. Some is like North America, so I deal with the same sort of American marketing team that my colleagues in the US would. The reason probably why I'm more sensitive to Lumix content and the Lumix S9 launch, whatever, is because they have historically shown to be punitive, and incorrectly so. Now, before I go too far on this little tirade, I would like to say that the American personnel, I work mostly under the sort of US side of the Lumix thing. There is like a very small Canadian thing, but it usually gets deferred through US. And the individuals in the US have been pretty great as far as marketing. And it's also important to differentiate between marketing and the product and the engineering. So this is more of a criticism on marketing. Lumix marketing has punished me. When I made videos in the past, they're very sensitive to the language that's used. I was going to make a joke when I saw people talking about the S9 as being strange, that word. I have an experience of calling a camera strange and then not being invited to review the S5 Mark II because my review of the S5 was Panasonic Lumix S5, a strange but powerful camera. And I stand by that. It was a strange camera. Why did I call it strange? Because it basically made the S1s and their more expensive previous cameras kind of superfluous. It did everything they did, but for cheaper, and it's powerful. And at the end of the video, I said, it's one Sony autofocus system away from being the perfect camera. And yet somebody at Lumix saw that title and said, when we're figuring out who we should send the S5 Mark II to, don't send it to this guy because he thought the S5 was strange. And then they didn't invite me to Japan. Not this Japan, the previous Japan, the one where they launched S5 II. Because of that, no Japan. And probably a little bit because I was critical of the GH6, because they were like, he still likes Sony crop sensor cameras, but he doesn't like the Panasonic crop sensor cameras. He's biased. Don't invite him to Japan. In fact, at one point, it was even lightly suggested to me that if I could provide a title ahead of time for the S5 II, that they could run that up the flagpole and potentially get me approved to review that camera. And my response was obviously like, are you insane? How can I give you a title for a camera that I haven't even touched or seen yet or been briefed on or know anything about, other than that I signed an NDA and you've got a camera coming out and that you're not sending me to Japan? How can I possibly provide you a title? That made no sense to me, but it really did indicate to me what they were trying to do, which is create hype pieces. They weren't trying to get reviews of a camera. They were trying to create hype pieces. And I'm like, I can't do it. I can't do it. So I had to review the S5 II kind of on my own, so to speak. I didn't go to Japan. I wasn't at the press event. I was in my studio doing my regular tests, and I posted my video on my own. And thankfully, the US team was able to send me a unit to actually review. But that's an example of punitive. Now, this time around with the S9, I didn't go to Japan either, but they did actually call me and say, hey, Gerald, we're not going to send you to Japan because we don't think you'll like the camera. And this is an interesting topic that isn't really about is there negative consequences, but it is something that I want to touch on in just a little bit. So let me finish the negative consequences thing, and then we'll talk about what I think about what these brands are doing with press releases based on some feedback that I got from Lumix. And I do appreciate their open honesty, but I think it means a lot. So real quick, to be fair, let's harass the other brands as well for consequences. What else do we got? Canon. Okay, Canon in Canada is a joke, and I don't mind saying that out loud. I think at one point, like, I don't know if I've ever received an early camera from Canon. So if ever you want to know, is Gerald right about being first doesn't matter? Look at any of my Canon reviews. I don't think I ever got a pre-release product from Canon. Most of those ones I either got from a camera store, or I hassled the cinema department to send me one of their like C300s or whatever, like months after it came out for me to make a long review. So great that they lent me things, but I'm borrowing things from like the rental department. I'm not getting seeded from Canon marketing. They're kind of useless in Canada. I don't mind saying that. Who else? Fuji. Fuji has gone the full cycle. They went from being great. They have a Canon attachment. And they went from being great. They were one of the first brands that ever reached out to me. And then we had a relationship that continued from there where they would keep sending me cameras. But then something went wrong with one of those launches. I think it might have been the XH2S. And I don't think it was on me. But I think Fuji had a problem where they were sending out cameras that weren't final firmware. And the reviewers were having trouble knowing whether to say in the video that something was an actual bug or was a pre-production issue. And so my understanding is that Fuji kind of shut it down. They shut down the sending cameras out pre-production before embargo, and now they'll brief you on the camera ahead of time, but they won't send them out until after embargo, unless you're part of somebody who gets invited to the launch events, which are usually in different places, like Sweden and Japan and stuff like this. Then those people get hands-on. But also, that's another fact that I want you to connect with the Lumix thing of like, what does it mean if you're being sent there? What is it? And we'll touch on this more, but keep that part in mind for the next section. So Fuji wasn't so much punitive other than they just kind of shut it down because like we don't like the way that reviewers are reviewing our products. So now there will be no more pre-release until we have final firmware, and hopefully that will clear the air of what's a pre-production problem and what's a final firmware problem. Maybe that's reasonable. Maybe that's annoying. It's a bit of both, probably. Nikon's always kind of just been quiet. You know, they've never really done embargo cameras. If you remember, I had one where the guy actually had to chaperone it. And if you've ever watched a video on a Nikon camera from one of your favorite creators and they're doing a review, you best believe just out of the shot, there's a Nikon guy who brought the camera and is kind of just like chaperoning the product because they don't mail out a camera for you to have for 2 weeks. But they have been good in my experience of sending out cameras after the fact and being flexible with like how long you need them for and what you want to make. Never really gave me any feedback. If I don't like a camera, and historically, you know, I was a little bit like not so sure when they first entered the mirrorless market, but they were like, try the Mark II, try our Z9, try our Z8, and they're always just like, try the next one. Never felt anything punitive from Nikon, so good on them. And then lastly, Sony. Now, on the camera side and on the engineering side, I've been critical of Sony. You know, I roast them about not putting firmware in cameras, about making the next camera, make my more expensive camera look stupid, about making cameras, too many segments, bad cameras, weird cameras, the Burano, the vlogging cameras. I've been all over Sony's butt. I would say my most negative videos are about Sony products. Why? Because I am the most comfortable making those critical videos about Sony. If I have a bias towards Sony, I think it's because of that. I think that if a brand, people say, they have to say nice things, the YouTuber has to say nice things, the brand's going to punish them. I'm the opposite. I'll say whatever I want to say, and then if the brand punishes me, then that will change my perspective on the brand. It doesn't start over here. With Sony, they've, given me opportunities. I've both said great things and also negative things in different videos, and then they keep giving me opportunities. That just keeps making me more a fan of the brand. And so that is the smartest play. If camera brands, if you're listening, that's the play. If you make a creator feel like they're immune to any punishment from you, not only will they provide their audiences with more objective, balanced videos that actually show the criticisms, but then you as a brand look like a brand that's willing to take that criticism, pass it on to the engineers. And if you ask any YouTuber, they'll say, whenever we go to the Sony events, the engineers are there and they have sit-down sessions where you can tell the engineers what you think. Sony feels like the brand that is able to take criticism the best, and so I give them the highest marks for that, and I'm more likely to use their products knowing that they're a brand that takes criticism the best, even if they don't act on that criticism as quickly as I would like them to. I want to talk a little bit more about the consequences with something that's very personal to me, but then also talk about, I think, a perception that us as YouTubers should be careful with. The one that's personal to me is back with Lumix. When this first issue started happening, where they didn't invite me to Japan the first time for the S5 II, I talked to some of my closer YouTube friends about it. I was like, can you believe this? What's going on? Blah, blah. And they're like, yeah, you've always been really positive in Lumix. And I thought about making a video at that time because people are asking me, why now, Gerald? Why are you talking about this now? I was going to make, instead of an S5 II review, I was going to turn my S5 II review into screw Lumix, and here's why. And I didn't, because I thought people actually need to know about this camera. It's a good camera. And I want people to hear, hopefully, a fair review from me that isn't bogged down by all this. But I think there was also some of the feedback that I got from some of my friends who I think were doing it with the right intention were saying, if you make that video, man, it's over for you. Lumix is never going to talk to you again. And I thought, yeah, that's a good point. And I do, and then now looking back on that, that's that negative consequences. That's, you can't say what you want to say because they'll never talk to you again. And that's what the commenters are right about. There is that. But I was wrong. And you know why I was wrong? Because I hadn't said anything negative about them leading up to that point, and they canceled me from going to Japan before I had ever made a video roasting them. So what does that mean? It means that we're disposable as creators. You may think that you made a video on the S5 that called it like perfect, it just needs better autofocus. And I did. You may have made a video on the GH5, on the S1, on the S1H, on the S1R, what all the damn Lumix cameras, and be like, this is fantastic, I love this, oh, Vlog's so good, oh, this is great, maybe a better autofocus, I think they need better autofocus, but this is great, can you believe they put this shutter? And then they'll go, what, did he call it strange? No, no Japan, get him out of here. That's what it's like. And I'm worried that, but I guess I shouldn't say anything about Lumix because I don't want to be in their bad books. I already am so easily disposed of that why am I worried about preserving the sanctity of the brand? If they watch this video and they go, oh, any future things, cut them off. You might have done that anyway for something I wouldn't have even known why you were going to do it. That lack of security means that you don't get any kind of sensitivity from me because you made me feel uncertain when I was just doing my job honestly. So now I'll just be fully honest about everything. And if you don't like that, then you can keep making me feel uncertain like you already have. That's my frustration with Lumix. Now, when I look at this S9 launch, or even when I look at the Fuji stuff where they send people to the specific events, but they won't send out pre-embargo cameras anymore, I think what we should be concerned with as YouTubers is what does that say about us? To my fellow creators who went to Japan for the S9, I want you to know something. They approached me about the camera ahead of time, and they said, Gerald, we're not going to invite you to Japan, and you're not the only one that we're not going to invite, because we don't want to send, because we don't think that you're going to like the camera. We don't think that it's for you. We think that you're, for what you do, for what you like to shoot, for how you like to use your cameras, for how you test your cameras, for the fact that you make videos about overheating, about record limits, about how long you can live stream, how long you can record YouTube videos for, we don't think you're going to like the camera. So we don't think it makes sense for you to go to Japan. And they said there's also some other people that we're not going to invite for those same reasons. And I know some of those people. Patrick Tommaso, Caleb Pike from DSLR Video Shooter. And I was thinking to myself, those are two channels you just said that I believe aren't going to sugarcoat anything and are going to tell the criticisms about that product, regardless of what kind of angle you're trying to take with it. They're going to say, yeah, but can I do this? No. So by you not inviting us and then inviting other people, what are you saying about those other people? And again, I'm not criticizing my YouTube colleagues. I'm saying I know them. I know that many of them strive to create balanced content. But by inviting them, are you suggesting that you can just tell them that it's great and they're going to say that it's great and they're going to ignore all the cons? You're only inviting hype people? You want to just create hype? You don't want balanced reviews? That's what it feels like when you say those things. It makes us look bad. All of us. Anybody who goes to that Japan thing now, and I know that when I make this video, people are going to look back on those creators, the ones that are like vindictive, or the ones who have the attitude of like, see, I knew all YouTubers were shills. They're going to be like, all these people in Japan, they're all just bought and sold by Panasonic. They're not. But Lumix is categorized, and they're putting them in lumps as people that they think will toe the line. And so all I would ask of my fellow YouTubers is ask yourself, are you doing something to put yourself in that box that Lumix feels safe presenting a camera that other people they thought would be critical of, that they don't invite, but they say, these people will be fine. These people we can manipulate. These people we can get them to say the positive things. These people won't be that critical. Make sure you're not doing something to put yourself in that category unless you want to be in that category. And again, if your plan is like, man, I love trips, I want to make money, I got lots of sponsors that I got to have inventory for, I like all cameras, then cool. There's some people out there that I adore their content who mostly love everything. They love everything tech-based because they're just in love with technology, and every little, I call it an infinitesimally better gadget, that makes them happy. So cool. You can be in that box. And for a marketing department, that's a good person to invite because they love tech, right? But if you're not trying to be in that box, then maybe evaluate what you're doing and make sure that you're not being incorrectly lumped in a box of people that's like, we'll just invite them because they won't be critical of the camera, because that's why they didn't invite me or Kayla Pike or Patrick and a bunch of other people. I'm not better than anybody else. Let me get that straight. It's just that clearly I'm not as concerned about upsetting a brand. And I guess that's what I want. I want us to be in a place where the new YouTubers that are just transitioning into that phase 2 aren't worried about upsetting a brand, and that the rest of us that are in the thick of it and are trying to earn our living off of this platform can maybe take a few more liberties without being worried about upsetting the brand, and make the content that we actually want to make when we want to make it, without being first, without worrying about embargoes, without worrying about press trips, and just getting back to that interesting content that allowed you to transition from phase 1 to phase 2 in the first place, and making the stuff that you really want to make. That's what I think this should all be about. And I think that if we do that, that we'll be immune to all this other nonsense that's going on. And I think that's what a reviewer should be, immune to all this kind of crap, because it's what the audiences deserve, and it's what we deserve for ourselves and for the videos that we want to make, which is why we started this in the first place. All right, I'm done.